yeah, go to church, find Jesus. Like, I mean, why is everybody so horny here?
Why is everyone so horny around here? We've got some Patreon shout-outs. At the top, we've got Nava, Ellen Morgan, Jesse Polson, and Jeffrey Cleary. They signed up at a elevated level on our Patreon, so they get a shout-out as part of it. If you're not signed up yet, you got to go check out what's happening on the Patreon. We've had a lot of people signing up. I think we're almost at 1,000 signups now, which is so cool.
It's like paid, yeah.
And if you sign up there, you get access to our weekly premium episodes. Our last one took a look at a couple MAGA candidates that really illustrate just how weird and extreme the movement is getting. Those two guys were James Fishback and Dan Bilzerian. I also put 3 T-Pain songs in that episode. And if you want to know how and why I did that, well, you'll just have to sign up and go find out yourself.
Yeah, I was. It was one of those you're telling me now for the first time situations, because I walked into that, our document, and I was greeted with a lot of T-Pain, and I said, "Oh my." Well, I just want to introduce the audience to a slightly more serious situation. I'm going to be very brief about this, Jared. But the Arab American journalist Ahmed Shihab Eldin, his Kuwaiti authorities have imprisoned Ahmed amidst the heated conflict in the Middle East unleashed by Trump and Netanyahu. It's a form of repression against freedom of the press here. And we need to free Ahmed, and he didn't do anything wrong, just reported. So we're adding a link to a petition published by Committee to Protect Journalists in the description. Jennifer Salon from Arab American Institute came to my book event at George Washington University, and she mentioned that she listened to the show, and I said I would do what I could for her friend there, because that's not fun. We need to get him out. And there have been a lot of horrible things done to journalists, Jared, since this war began, particularly in Lebanon, where there have been targeted assassinations. This is an opportunity to potentially avoid more tragedy. So let's try to attract as much attention to the situation as we can. I want to personally thank Jared, everybody who has purchased Strange People on the Hill, my first book, and all the people who showed up at our event at Politics and Prose and gave us such a huge turnout. There's a lot of people also watched the YouTube feed, which we barely promoted. It was really awesome. I just want to quickly say that if you like the book after you're reading it, why not go ahead and give it a good review on Amazon or on Goodreads, or both, because that stuff matters for the algorithm these days. I know I'm number 1 in radical thought, which is a funny start, but pretty good after after only a week of release to already be charting somewhere. So yeah, thanks everybody. That was awesome.
Yeah, congratulations on the book again, Mike. And yeah, let's help Mike with the algorithm. It's the algorithm's world. We're just living in it. This week's listener music comes from a band called Mad Drunken Americans. It's a band in Chicago, and I played a gig with them last week. If you were floating around Montrose Saloon in Chicago, you might have caught me on lead guitar duties. They have a new album coming out this summer, so keep an eye on this band. The song is called One Night Stand, which was one of the ones we played live. Joining posting through it now, we have Amanda Marcotte. She's a senior writer at Salon and the author of the newsletter Standing Room Only, which you can also find in video form on YouTube. She has more than one cat, and we'll put links in the description of this episode
To everything but the cats.
to everything but the cats. If that changes, Amanda, and the cats have links that can be inserted into the episode, let us know. We'll go back, even if it's months later. But thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
So, support for Trump is fading. We've been covering that a lot on this show. He is shitting the bed with the Iran situation, which headlines today, it looks like the Strait of Hormuz is going to reopen. Things seem to be making progress, but it's really been a mess. Inflation is going up. People are still bitter about the Epstein files, and his signature issue, immigration, is polling abysmally. More than half of the country polled wants to abolish ICE, not restrict it, not, what did the Democrats say? Hold it accountable. They want it gone. It's just a massive failure.
And Jared, I should point out also that a TPUSA event that was hosted at the University of Georgia recently this week was so visibly empty. I mean, you couldn't miss how few people there are and all the images. It was so embarrassing that Andrew Colvett, I think we've discussed him a little bit on this show before, but he's basically sort of I don't know, sort of handsome face, like no personality. He was the kind of the PR flack for TPUSA and Charlie Kirk. He's kind of stepped into a bigger role in Kirk's. He was basically saying, "Oh, the only reason why it was empty is because all these leftists they reserved all the tickets and then threw them out to try to make us look bad." I mean, I can't remember a no dignity moment quite like this before.
I mean, I think the tell for me was that Erica Kirk canceled and said it was for security reasons.
Yes.
Like, it's never going to be more secure than when Secret Service has it on lockdown because the vice president is there. I think she did not want to be seen in front of such a small crowd.
Yeah, I mean, it is humbling to be sure.
Unless something really turns around, it looks like MAGA is being dog walked by Trump into a bloodbath in the midterms. I don't want to count the chickens before they hatch or anything like that, but I'm curious, Amanda, what's your vibe check? How are you feeling? Do the prospects look grim?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question because I think that in 2018, you saw something similar happen, which is people elected Trump and they were like, oh my God, he's so bad. And then the midterms were a bloodbath. But right now, the map isn't as good for Democrats as it was in 2018 due to gerrymandering and other, effects. And so I don't think we're going to be, it's still up in the air whether or not the Senate will flip blue. But Congress absolutely will. The House of Representatives absolutely will. And I enjoy watching Trump get into like a sweaty mess over it because he's starting to think about what happens when the Democrats take the House, which is things like Epstein hearings, I think, are on the table now. And that, if you think things are bad now, if the Democrats are smart at all, and I do think they'll be able to use hearings effectively starting in 2027. So, yeah, I'm feeling mildly optimistic about the future in that way.
Yeah, because it'll effectively make him a lame duck. His agenda through Congress is over. So it's going to be like the end of the first Trump administration where it was just all executive orders. And then when Biden came in, they basically put him in a stack on the desk and then knocked him into the trash can. It also, I think, is giving people the sense that, the speed or intensity in which things can degrade in the country could start to slow down. But, I always, I say that with my fingers crossed, right?
Well, I mean, I also have to interject that the damage done so far in these last 2 years or so has been so profound. And I don't think it's just, policy stuff. That has been really bad, of course, but just the psychological damage, I think, on everyone. I still like the lack of justice in Minneapolis for Renee Good and Alex Preddy. That's going to stay with me for the rest of my life. I've never seen anything like that before, and it is. I don't know what the Democrats can do to clean up some of this stuff. It's going to take probably generations if we're lucky.
Yeah, I think that's the scariest part for me is that in some ways, fair and unfair, the perception in the country is that Democrats are not capable of being a real opposition to MAGA. That's the big if factor in all this because people hate Trump and they want him gone, but they don't actually seem to feel like there's any meaningful alternatives. And if you look around the world at authoritarian governments, it's not just that people hate the people in charge. They need to believe that something better is possible in order to move forward. I mean, that's why Hungary was able to flip finally, is there was a meaningful alternative that was put up for people and then they rallied. But I am genuinely terrified that Democrats just can't get people to believe that that's possible, in part because of their own failures and in part because they are marginalized in ways that I think are like in Minneapolis, I don't think the leadership failed to care enough. The Democratic leadership of that state, I think it's just that they really didn't know what to do.
Yeah, and I just want to add one other thing too is I see a lot of wait and see, let's watch Trump implode kind of and hang back is the strategy. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention to the Democrats and paying too much attention to the right because of the nature of my work. But where are the loud calls about abortion rights, for instance? Where are people running on that? With so many, I mean, I'm sure some people are making a big part of it thing, but I just don't hear it nationally enough. The things we've lost over the last few years, it really boggles the mind.
And they don't seem to really understand what and part of it again, it's such a mixed bag. I think I agree with you that people need to be in the party leadership need to be stepping up, and if they can't, they need to be stepping down, right? But I think that there's a problem of Trump has broken so many things. I think they really are paralyzed by trying to even figure out what to coalesce behind. Is it ICE? Is it abortion rights? Is the economy? Is it the Iran war? Is it gay rights? I mean, there's so many things that we should be worried about right now.
Switching gears a little bit, because we're going to talk about JD Vance today. Over the last few months, we've covered a handful of stories on this show, and I've seen you cover in Standing Room Only that might lead people to think there's some cracks forming in the MAGA coalition. Uh, you know, uh, we think back to even a year ago, right? I think the MAGA movement had, disingenuously, I'll say, but had been able to capture this sort of almost countercultural energy. It was kind of badass. Like wearing the MAGA hat was a way of saying "fuck you," right? Much so in the way that it was in 2016. Uh, but that has seemed to change drastically. The movement is trying to figure out its anti-Semitism problem, which has gotten much worse in recent years. So all this stuff about the Iran war. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, that spun out and got incredibly messy, remains messy. Today, it doesn't seem that people are as excited about Erica Kirk and what Turning Point USA is doing now. Throughout this, Trump has remained a sort of daddy figure to the movement, right? People who criticize the president are still punished by other people in the movement. His endorsement still helps Republicans a lot. He's still able to raise a ton of money, fill up arenas for rallies. But I do think the question kind of still stands, and I've seen it coming up in media more and more, which is how much longer can this actually go on? Like, what happens if Trump kneels over and dies tomorrow? You know, of natural causes, of course. I mean, he's an older man who seems to be degrading.
With an
Is all I'll say.
outspoken affinity for McDonald's.
Who is not quite sure he's going to heaven and feels the need to say that to reporters repeatedly. Um, Amanda, I mean, how do you feel about that question? I mean, you've written about some of these cracks forming in the base that are sort of tearing the movement apart. Seems like all it can do is produce infighting these days. How long can this go on? I mean, does this remind you of anything you've seen before?
Well, I'm often saying to the producers on my YouTube show, if you think what happened after Charlie Kirk is bad, wait till Trump dies. I mean,
Wait, I
the
need a clarification here before you go further. Do you mean just like in terms of the chaos that inevitably will strike the movement, or do you mean like a series of AI generated videos that that replace his memory entirely and turn him into something entirely new?
I mean, both, I guess. You're going to see both in an effort to turn Donald Trump into a saint figure to like re-rally the troops, right? But what will probably happen is that the empty throne, it's going to turn into ugly infighting. And again, Charlie Kirk was just a figurehead. I mean, he was in charge of a powerful conservative organization. But compared to Trump in terms of power and importance, he's not there's no comparison. Like once Trump is out of the way, whether it's through uh, dying from McDonald's or from just being kind of lame ducked out and not being able to, run again because it's illegal and he will also be very, very old if he makes it till then. I think that we're going to see a ugly, ugly battle to replace him because and this is something that always happens with like these kind of fascistic movements. They already dislike each other. They're already unpleasant, crabby, cantankerous people who
Malignant narcissists is the way I
yeah.
describe them.
Yeah, and then on top of it, you have and this is often true with like these kind of cult-like authoritarian or movements is like the person on top is such a narcissist that they just can't actually allow anybody to be cultivated. I mean, yeah, Trump picks Vance and Vance starts to feel like, okay, it's me. And Trump is like, no, it can't be you because it will always be me. And so now he's cultivating Rubio. He's never going to let somebody be his replacement because he's incapable of it. And so that's a good thing. That's a one knock-on benefit of his otherwise odious personality.
Media consensus as this question comes up seems to be that naturally maybe JD Vance will be the inheritor of the MAGA throne once Trump is gone, whether that is being voted out of office and put back into private life or, drinks one too many Diet Cokes and explodes, which that makes sense. I mean, JD Vance is the vice president. In a literal sense, he's next in the line of succession. So if Donald Trump were to die, he would become the president. But I don't know. I'm just not really seeing it. I mean, he could, through succession, get the title of president. But I think if he had to run for it, that would be a disaster. Even beyond that, just culturally, I just don't, I'm not seeing it. He just doesn't seem to be that guy. What do you think?
So there's kind of two layers to this, if I may. There's
Yeah, go.
one which is like just literally like the objective journalistic evidence here. One is the idea that vice presidents are like super electable is not true. I mean, look at the past 100 years. It's actually not been that many vice presidents that went on to win the next election, right? It's like what? Johnson, and Kennedy had died, and then still Johnson didn't run for a second term. George H.W. Bush. And I mean, there's not many. And then on top of that, JD Vance has never actually won a competitive race. He's only won a Senate race in Ohio where he was stood up by a billionaire, Peter Thiel, who he still just bows and scrapes to, who is a stone cold weirdo in and of himself. And even then, Vance underperformed other Republicans in that Ohio election, which is not a good sign if you're trying to win a national election in such a polarized country. So that's the data driven answer. And then there's also the but look at him answer. He
Yeah.
can't. JD Vance doesn't have a riz. He is a odious, slimy guy. And unlike Trump, who can kind of unfortunately paper over that with a well-practiced fake stand-up comedy thing that makes it sound like all the odious things he's saying aren't serious, and creates this kind of ambiguous space around him that allows his supporters to both be the worst and back him, but also tell themselves that they're not because it's all just jokes. JD Vance never, no matter how often JD Vance says he's joking, he's never joking, and he doesn't ever come across as somebody who has a sense of humor about anything, and he can't fake it like Trump can.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that, to me is the No Kings protest, etc. It taps into this idea that Americans have never liked the idea of a king or an authoritarian. They've always thought that sucked. Even the right wing people, they didn't like it. We were always, those people were always amassing guns to combat a fictional king that might come along. But Trump has been able to flip that by being a kind of an authoritarian figure who gets by being charismatic. He's a very charismatic person. I hate to give him that, but he is. He's got people under his spell. He's able to say weird things that people find funny. Even people who don't like him end up memeing things. Sometimes when I see on the left, right, you'll see people sharing something that he said that was stupid, and they say it so many times laughing about it that next thing the right is embracing it, right? Whatever dumb thing he was saying.
Yeah, Pope Leo's week on crime.
But so he's actually so charismatic that he's able to really be the first king, so to speak. Even though he's been at 50% popularity for maybe a hot minute only in his whole time, he's been able to do it. That's a tall ask for this Yale grad who is trying to be 10 things at once all the time and is not charismatic. I don't know how you'd have how is anyone going to be a kind of right-wing authoritarian in the United States given our history? It seems like a really tall ask.
I have to disagree that JD Vance is not funny. I mean, check out the chops on this guy.
Thank you all. Thank you so much, Ed. It's great to be here. It's great to have you in our nation's capital. I always say to everybody, this is a very big group. I can't see any of you because these spotlights are glaring bright. The person who runs these spotlights, Ed, must be a Democrat because I cannot see a single person in that crowd.
Yeah, it's when you have to stop as often as JD Vance does to reassure people it's a joke. Yeah. Yeah. What's also kind of interesting to me about JD Vance is that the other thing that he does, and it's a little more subtle that's different from Trump, is the other thing that Trump is able to do in creating ambiguity around him is because because he doesn't believe in Christianity really, and because he's always just yeah, God, that's what I got to say for these evangelicals to support me, right? That's kind of his barely hidden stance. He creates this permission for people that don't want this kind of grim theocratic Handmaid's Tale world to actually happen, to feel like it's not actually a risk under Trump. People were genuinely shocked that he supported banning abortion because they're how many abortions has he paid for? Whereas Vance has bet it all on this idea that this kind of right-wing Christian, a overtly theocratic version of MAGA is the one that's going to win, which is it is the like least popular version of MAGA.
You know, it's really funny. There was a poll out this week. I don't know if everybody saw this. It's a Pew Research poll, I believe, and they said that like I think the overall was like 70% of respondents or something like that said that Trump is not a religious person and has no actual religious devotion. But evangelicals overwhelmingly said that he cares about people like them, right? Like that so they're like, yeah, this guy, it's almost like, yeah, this is a holy vessel here who actually has no faith, which speaks to exactly what you were saying just now. We're just sort of like, yeah, we can rent this horse. The evangelicals can put their faith into it, and they know that they can fill it, even though if he's not like them, that's whatever. Then the kind of I guess New York centric fascists, like we're talking about the sort of Wall Street guys, or like, stereotype of like a particular type of person who lives on Long Island, where I grew up, that is like a full on chud brain. Like they don't really care about the religious. They just want a strong man. Like Trump can be all those things, but yeah, Vance has not only made religion part of his brand, to your point, but he released this book about like his like Catholic conversion, right? Like that he's coming out on the same day that Trump was making fun of the Pope and like putting himself in like Jesus robes in an AI video or AI image.
And then Vance's like kind of scummy attempts to justify Trump's behavior weirdly reflect poorly on him in a way that they don't on Trump. And I was kind of working this out when I was writing about it, because like I felt like there was something about the way that Trump does this stuff that creates this ability for his supporters, even the like very religious ones, to just sort of get over it. But there's something about the smarmy way that Vance defends it where you're like, ew, gross. It's kind of worse. And I think that that's going to be a real hurdle for him.
I feel like what distinguishes Vance from Trump, sort of what I think you might be getting at, is that Trump will just say shit. He'll just be like, the Pope is weak on crime. What a loser. What a dingus. And then the next post is like AI Jesus, but it's him. And he's like, I thought it was a doctor. I don't know. And then but Vance will come out and he's always like too sincere about he tries to be like too serious about it. He demands to be taken very, very seriously.
I just want to say something about the doctor thing. There's I've seen people speculate that Trump was told that the image to say that the image was doctored, that was the message to get across, and it was a game of telephone, and that he like was like, I was a doctor.
He also said it was about the Red Cross. So
Right. It's just like, yeah. Well, we'll get into the, I'm sure at some point we'll get into the dementia question, but yeah, that's, I just wanted to bring that up.
if I have to like pull out a little bit and say, like, think about these people, like, not to sound too much like Trump and his like central casting thing, but I do think it matters. He's insightful in that way, which is like when politicians do well or fail, I think based on whether they fit into sort of types that people understand. And for better or for worse, Trump is like the shitty grandfather that everyone honors and loves anyway. You know, I had that grandfather. I think a lot of us did. That because he's the patriarch, we're all supposed to like love him no matter what he does or says or who he abuses. Not that my grandfather was abusive, but just sort of.
Yeah, well, that's like an American archetype, or just sort of just like that's the way abuse is perpetuated, right? Like it just sort of like that. Well, Grandpappy was respected, and we have to like do that, and then it's only generations later that people come to terms with the horrors that were done by previous generations.
Exactly, and JD Vance is the debate bro. The college debate bro that like no one likes.
Yeah, he's like the most annoying person in your philosophy 101 class. It's like, I think Socrates was kind of a blowhard. And everyone's like, shut up.
Yeah.
We all have to do this. It's required credit. Please shut up.
I think the Pope needs to think harder about theology, and you're just like, And it's just, yeah, everything is an argument to be won through clever argumentation. And it's annoying because it's always in bad faith and he uses shitty tactics. And people may not be able to sort of analyze why they don't like it, but it is exhausting.
So I want to go through some lowlights, some recent lowlights of JD Vance. The first one has to do with the war in Iran. According to some reporting, he supposedly tried to talk Trump out of it, but failed. And then Trump sent him uh, over to the Middle East to try to negotiate an end to the war, which also did not uh, go as according to plan. And when asked about it by reporters, he gave this response. This clip went around. I think a lot of our listeners may have seen this.
Second thing Gollyboff said, which again I found fascinating, is he said, we refuse to give up the right to enrichment. And I thought to myself, you know what? My wife has the right to skydive, but she doesn't jump out of an airplane because she and I have an agreement that she's not going to do that because I don't want my wife jumping out of an airplane. We don't really concern ourselves with what they claim they have the right to do. We concern ourselves with what they actually do. And I think the president's been very clear on the enrichment question. Our position on that has not changed.
What?
I have an agreement with my wife that she won't jump out of a plane. Thank you.
Well, you know what's interesting about it, because it's not like, it's a weird example to come up with, obviously, which is why people have been highlighting it. It's like, what are you talking about? But I think the core impulse there is like, I need to restrain my wife. What's a good example of that, right? Like that's, I need to restrain my wife. What can I do? I think it's very also telling. We did an entire thing on our Patreon, Amanda, that focused on Usha Vance, in just like a segment where she gave an interview to NBC News that was very telling. And they have her now doing this kind of thing. This is what they seem to do in MAGA. They like take the women around and they give them kind of entertainment jobs, right? Where it's like Katie Miller is going to interview people, and the only people watching Katie Miller's show, by the way, are Jared Holt and Michael Hayden. Those are the only people who watch that show every week. That's like all of her clicks. And like, that, and she's going to have something where she's reading to children and stuff like that. It does have I feel like, give away something in a Freudian way that he thought about that. Obviously she's pregnant. She shouldn't be skydiving, but like his first example is something to restrain her.
No, I think that's really insightful. We've covered the Vance's marriage a lot at Standing Room Only, and unfortunately that has created a knowledge that I don't know that any of us wish that we had, which is that JD Vance uses every opportunity he can in public to run her down, make fun of her, or brag about how he has brought her under his control. And this is like something that a lot of MAGA men do. Like we had a clip on the most recent episode of Michael Knowles doing the same thing, talking about how his wife has a doctorate, but he's basically gotten her to be a housewife. The whole, I took someone successful and I ripped all the power that she has in the world away from her narrative has a lot of appeal to these guys, and JD Vance probably leans on that harder than anybody. Like like the old trophy wife was the hot model that you showed off how hot a girl you could pull, right? The new trophy wife is the educated career woman whose life you derailed.
I don't want to like, I actually can't even talk about this using the words that they use, but it's funny that you should mention that. Jared may be familiar with this as well. There's a kind of like meme, a MAGA meme going around. I don't want to use the expletives involved here, but it is.
Do you want me to say it?
Are we talking? Okay, go ahead.
MAGA cock.
Okay, fine. We're just talking about it then. Yeah.
MAGA cock? Oh my God.
Yeah, and woke pussy. Right. Okay. And it's like, no, this is a thing. And they're like, these guys are like posting about it all the time. And it's like, oh, she's like, deep down, she wants my MAGA cock and all this stuff. And it's like this idea that like this woke woman in the world is out there, and she's she's out at in the university life, and she's learning about these things, and she has all her own opinions, but until she gets my MAGA cock, then she no longer has to worry. And this is like a meme that they're pushing very hard, like a bunch of their like kind of online army are pushing. And it's very telling. Like, I first saw it surface around Alyssa Liu. We've talked a little bit. We've never done a full episode about their obsession with her, which is fascinating. But I think that's where it sort of came from. They understood, like woke plus. They understand that she's a Bay Area woman with halo hair and like cool piercings. She wouldn't even like literally look in their direction. Like she wouldn't even see them. It would just be like, God, I could get me to the next place I'm going. So they need to conjure this entire fantasy about taming, disciplining, bringing her to heel. And that's where this origin came from. And so they've just been using that everywhere. And it's funny because it is the same thing that you're talking about here. That is essentially what JD Vance is selling about his wife.
And that's why I like y'all's show, because I think I know and research these people. And yet, oh my God, I did not know about this. And that's just,
maybe we'll like air it out for a full 15 minutes or something on the next Patreon with great pain. I didn't know if we were allowed to even say MAGA cock until Jared said it. It embarrasses me too viscerally.
This is the After Hours podcast, Mike. We can do what we want and say what we want.
And you know that every guy who's bragging about his MAGA cock is just not that, not all that. I'm sorry.
Oh, not all adore. To quote the new K-pop song "Pinky Up," not exactly hanging anything impressive. Yeah, I mean, theoretically, you could say that. You could say that.
Or just off-bodied and not impressive and probably boring. Not just penis size here. I mean, the whole package of not gonna do it.
Yeah. Well, they're also the other thing they are, and I think this is very important. I mean, I don't want to go to sidetrack. Is deeply porn-addled in a way that is, I find fascinating, because the way this started, when I first saw the MAGA stuff, there was like these strong arguments against OnlyFans and everything and all this porn. It's like, this is, elites controlling you, making you soft and making you soy boys or and Jews if they're anti-Semites. And ultimately, you just look around and like all these guys, 90% of their humor comes from stuff they saw in porn. And a lot of that, a lot of porn is built around bringing women to heel as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they resent they have a love-hate relationship with porn that is also the same one they have with women, and the two feed each other, which is they want it, they resent how much power that wanting it grants the thing they want, whether it's actual human being, or whether it's just watching more porn. And it's sad. They all need therapy. It's really brutal. But I think there's an interesting social component of that too, is like that JD Vance, to bring it back to him, is he obviously watches the stuff on Twitter and is plugged in.
He follows the accounts in some cases. I think he followed that guy Howling Mutant, who was recently someone really recently ID'd. As that's an example. There's a lot of overlap between him and the type of posters we're talking about.
Yeah, it's weird because, again, like you said, on one hand, Vance is like adhering to this kind of religious figure politically, which would say ban porn. And yet he's kind of really engaged in a lot of this MAGA bro discourse online. And his instincts are often to engage in the same kind of narratives and impulses that they have, especially around the idea that the movement should be kind of organized around bringing women to heel.
You mentioned religion. I want to go to the next JD Vance lowlight, which is after Trump picked a fight with the Pope for some reason. This is from that Turning Point USA event you mentioned earlier, Mike. JD Vance has jumped into the arena to defend their criticism of the Pope. And here's what he said.
Number one,
When the Pope says that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword, there is more than 1,000-year tradition of just war theory. Okay? Now, we can, of course, have disagreements about whether this or that conflict is just, but I think that it's important, in the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy, I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology. And I think that one of these issues here is that there has been, again, hey, random dude screaming, I told you I'd respond to your point. I just want to respond to this question first. But I think one of the issues here is that if you're going to opine on matters of theology, you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure it's anchored in the truth. And that's one of the things that I try to do. And it's certainly something I would expect from the clergy, whether they're Catholic or Protestant. Now,
the audacity you have to tell the Pope that he should be careful when he's talking about theology, just to make sure he gets everything right.
I want to just put one thing in here before I hear Amanda's thoughts. The Pope is like, recent polling is like one of the most popular public figures in the United States. Pope Leo, he's like at like 60% or 57 or something like that. No, I mean, and this is a country that doesn't like anybody anymore. So these guys are not doing well popularity-wise according to polling, and they are just going after the most popular, one of the more popular public figures in the United States.
What's funny is, yes. And in the most obnoxious way possible, right? Like, this gets back to what I was saying about Vance is that debate me bro guy. And like, maybe I just have, it's personal to me. I don't want to overrate this because I think a lot of what makes me feel ill about JD Vance is like that kind of, I see so much of myself in him, right? In a lot of ways, which is I grew up not poor, like I was working class. He legit grew up poor in a lot of ways, but working class, first college educated person in my family. My family's very conservative, very rural. And I also was on the debate team in high school. And I also like could have seen myself going down this path of like trying to just like becoming this person that he has become. And I instead, for whatever reason, ended up on a different path and thank the Pope or whatever. But so when I see him do this sort of thing, I just have this like almost, well, I want to throw up response to it, which is like, he does this all the time. Like what he said about the Pope is kind of a crutch of his, and it's one of his like college debate bro crutches, which is when he doesn't have an argument, he instead, and this is literally a logical fallacy, right? It's an ad hominem attack, right? He tries to discredit the person who made the argument. And he does it by presenting himself as this well-educated Yale, I know all sorts of things. And that person is just some like piker who doesn't know what they're talking about. I think he does it so much by habit that he forgot that he was talking about the Pope.
Yeah.
Somebody who definitely knows about theology.
It is very cringe. And my ex-wife and I, still a very close friend of mine, she is, we had this term, we used to say, you know, she's an actor, and we used to say a lot of theater, and she would refer like an ND, which would stand for no dignity, like an ND moment. Like this, like, oh, this person had an unfortunate ND moment in a play. And like this comment out there, this is an ND. Like this is like a pure no dignity moment. You cannot go out. It's just it's like a person, you know, you apply it when somebody is like, they put way too much dip on their chip. You know, he just doesn't understand like how embarrassing it would be for him to go out there and lecture the Pope. The other thing is also people will remember, I mean, this is the internet age. Everybody's got a million recordings of everything. When he inevitably runs for president, people will be bringing this up all the time. It's embarrassing.
His tendency to think he's clever haunts him a lot. I think that was actually one of the reasons the childless cat lady meme stuck to him too, because he said it with such certainty and such arrogance and such judgment of us childless cat ladies that like even women who have children, but perhaps were at some point in their life a childless cat lady. Women who just like cats, women who are just like, I just happen to think of you. It's not a crime to be childless.
Yeah,
Like,
cats are cool,
yeah,
and
there was
kids are hard.
it stuck in people's craw. Like it turns out, like I listened to the Bulwark's focus group podcast. I don't know how much I hate myself, but it is interesting that how every time they bring up JD Vance's name, whether the women that they're interviewing are Republicans, Democrats, swing voters, doesn't matter. They're like childless cat ladies, however.
Well, they operate as if women can't vote, which may be for some. No, seriously, which some of them may aspire. They may aspire to that future, and they may feel impervious to the female vote due to the Electoral College and all kinds of other unfortunate riggings in this country, and also to Trump's, once again, charisma, popularity, etc. But it will catch up to them when you have something that resembles a normal non-Trump election. I think it will be, they're going to feel the female vote in a much more profound way then.
And especially in a Republican primary. I think that's one thing JD Vance has not thought about, which is, sure, married Republican women will vote for the Republican nominee almost no matter what. You know, if they're married, like women married to Republicans are going to probably vote like their husbands in a general election. But primaries are a place where I just know from experience there's room that Republican women have to maneuver and like vote differently than their husbands. And JD Vance is going to take a bloodbath, I think, in a Republican primary with the female voters.
Yeah. Last JD Vance slow light I want to get to before we kind of talk about another huge point and kind of close up our argument for why JD Vance is not that guy, is that in addition to failing to broker peace with Iran, they also dispatched JD Vance to Hungary to try to rally up support for Viktor Orban before he got his doors blown off by double digits. And there was just a clip of JD Vance at a rally for Orban where he tried to call Trump on his cell phone. That I there's not a lot of substance here, but I just thought it was funny.
I actually had a special guest that asked that I give him a phone call, and we'll see. Let's hope he actually answers. But this is going to be very embarrassing. All right.
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet.
Okay. Try one more time. I get a good signal here.
Stop the clip now. I can't do it.
It's ringing.
It's another ND.
I mean,
And then when Trump finally picked up, he was like, "Oh, hey JD, you just give me a minute, 1 second." Like he forgot it was gonna happen or something.
yeah.
It really is evidence, I think, not only of just that they're bumbling or whatever, but just hubris again, where it's just like, we're going to do this stunt on stage and, just assume it's going to be good. Like they just can't imagine that they're going to fail in any of these things. They don't. This is what one of the worst things that happened to these guys in some ways is just winning the way they won in 2024, because they really felt they came in like, there was nothing. I mean, it was just it was raining MAGA cock in their mind, and it was just going to come in and just steamroll everybody, right? They're just going to run people over. There was going to be no resistance to anything. And they operated like that. And what we found is like that popularity started to fall off as soon as February 2025. And it's taken a huge dip since. It's been horrible for them.
Yeah. It turns out the power of woke pussy was much greater than they anticipated.
If I may, I want to be a conspiracy theory for just a second.
Let it rip. Let's go.
I don't know that Trump did forget that he was supposed to have this phone call. I
Yeah.
think this was an oversized shoe moment, which was he knew JD Vance was wanting to do this, and he was like, this will be a good opportunity to embarrass him on a national stage again.
It could be. I really think it could be. I mean, he's toying publicly with the idea that Marco Rubio is better than JD Vance, someone who he also publicly humiliated in 2016, 2017. Those clips will be playing forever. That could be that could be very well be the case. And I think didn't Trump say pretty much exactly that if these negotiations go well, I'll take credit, and if they don't, I'll blame JD Vance. So I don't think Trump likes him, and I don't think he likes as you were implying earlier, I don't think he likes the idea of anyone really succeeding him.
No, and he enjoys just casually humiliating people. So, like, the opportunity presented itself, so he took it.
Mentioned earlier, Turning Point USA and some other parts of the like big money establishment MAGA coalition seem to be putting their chips on JD Vance. Turning Point USA keeps getting him at events, and the turnout is abysmal. You know, it's they seem to be looking at the coalition that makes up MAGA and seeing what Peter Thiel and JD Vance, I'm mentioning them together because JD Vance is basically the Peter Thiel project. That sort of like Silicon Valley right-wing reactionary side of MAGA seems to be where they're putting the chips on the future of the movement after Trump, or at least they're trying to cultivate relationships there, apparently with the thought that that's going to succeed. But kind of the thing I thought we would wrap up on is just talking about the fact that the far right, which, you know, animates the ideology, animates the rhetoric, the stuff like MAGA cock or whatever, like, they hate JD Vance in no uncertain terms. Mike, you sent me this AI-generated cartoon from Emily Yukis, who
We've covered on the pod about, for people who remember the episode about the Will Stancil show. I know Will Stancil, very polarizing figure because a lot of people don't like him and, you know, that sort of thing. But he was getting like, you know, if you go back, I think he's doing much better now, but he was really getting bullied like pretty badly online. So we wanted to do a thing on it. And the bullying really culminated in this AI generated cartoon show created by Emily Euskis, who was also a pistachio salesman or something at Phillies games until she got thrown out for being a white nationalist, which is quite a low light for somebody's career.
yeah,
And then
you're too racist to sell nuts at the ball game.
She was too racist to sell nuts at the ball game. She's adjacent to the neo-Nazi white supremacist group, whatever you would call them, National Justice Party. I guess maybe white nationalists would be a safer thing, but they're a pro-Hitler group. And her, I don't know if it's her partner or her husband, is a guy who is like a full-on Hitlerite from that group. And she was making these tech people like Mark Andreessen were praising, unsurprisingly, actually, the Will Stancil show, which became more overtly racist and so forth. So she's done a new iteration. She's punching up now, and she is now focusing on JD Vance, and it's the JD Vance show, and it is pretty ruthless.
Yeah, I'm gonna play a quick clip of it, one that's not like overtly racist. And throughout the show, it really, really fixates on JD Vance's relationship to Peter Thiel, and you'll hear that in this clip.
Why are you looking at me like that, Mr. Thiel?
My JD, my life's work, my creation, my Manchurian candidate. I made you, I sculpted you by hand. I know every inch of you. Do you love me, JD?
Yes. You know I do, Mr. Thiel.
Then you know what you need to do, JD. Turn around and face the wall.
I'm going to stop the clip here because what follows is a sex scene where Peter Thiel, JD Vance is in the Oval Office and drops his pants on JD.
I should point out that
Peter Thiel fucks him.
Emily seems really preoccupied with male-on-male rape, which I don't know. She can go speak to a therapist. I know they're very anti-psychologists there, but I think it's a very telling thing because these same people who are like overtly fascist have a lot of skepticism about Peter Thiel. They think that his technology is going to be used to monitor them. They're used to being being monitored, right? Themselves. And they've experienced that, from the FBI and things like that. They've all gotten door knocks. Many of the people that Emily knows, I know for sure, I can actually attest that people from National Justice Party have had multiple visits from the FBI and have been monitored and stuff like that. So they're not like super amped at the idea of like, hey, let's align ourselves with this tech that like is going to, focus on every little aspect of our lives.
Yeah, and obviously, like, a lot of this is also, unfortunately, like, homophobic too.
Right.
Of course. That goes without saying. We thank you for pointing out what we were. Yes, of course.
But it's interesting. I've been thinking about this situation because it's very clear that she does have a knock on JD Vance that's accurate, which is that Peter Thiel his influence over Vance is kind of startling, especially considering how far Vance has, in theory, risen above needing Peter Thiel. But, it is interesting that Vance converted to Catholicism after he started being bankrolled by Peter Thiel, and he kind of preaches a version of Catholicism that's a lot closer to what Peter Thiel pushes than, say, the Vatican. And he doesn't.
It's much tougher on crime.
Yeah. It's like this esoteric demon talk crap that the Pope doesn't care about.
Well, I know that like Thiel was at one point like obsessed with Rene Girard, the philosopher, Catholic philosopher, and it's the kind of thing where he can be interpreted in multiple ways. He wrote a lot about scapegoating, the idea of scapegoating, and it's funny because so much of MAGA is quite literally, and what JD Vance does is built around scapegoating. It's built around something that, in theory, Thiel should find inherently evil if he reads that. I guess it's open to multiple interpretations. But yeah, I mean, like it's just fascinating that that's the kind of thing that obsesses him.
Not to go too far down the like philosophy path, but it's clear to me that Peter Thiel and therefore JD Vance both read Girard in the same way, which is somebody who correctly identified this tendency among people, but instead of agreeing with Girard that it's bad to scapegoat people, they've just exploited it. Like, oh, this is how you manipulate people. I mean, Vance explicitly said that when he said that Haitians are eating cats and dogs. He's like, well, I have to make up these stories in order to manipulate or like to get the media to talk about what I talk about.
Yeah, it was kind of an amazing thing to say out loud.
Yeah.
Well, Peter Thiel, for a supposed Christian, is not exactly, he's not exactly known for turning the other cheek. He's known for like target destroyed, like that is the way he's always operated. So yeah, there is a lot of inversion of Christianity, and there's a lot of scapegoating and a lot of brutality in the way these guys function, which is sort of the inversion of the text they claim to be citing.
And you see this with evangelical Christians a lot. They have created this narrative where, yes, that's technically what the teachings of Girard or Jesus or whoever they're looking up to say, but we're in an emergency moment where the evil demonic left is rising, and so we have to resort to drastic measures to stop this greater evil. That's the narrative that Peter Thiel is pushing. He's out there doing literal lectures about the Antichrist and how to stop him. And again, I think Vance, you hear that a lot in his rhetoric where he will say, well, yes, I'm a Christian, but because of X, Y, and Z, I have to reject the traditional interpretation of Christianity because it's dangerous and it will get us all killed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Also, homophobia aside, you know, the core message in that cartoon is that you are owned by some billionaire guy and we don't trust you. And if you see the rest of it, it's also it's also pretty like searing, also extraordinarily anti-Semitic. Actually, don't watch the rest of it. That's that's for us. Don't do that. Just listen to our interpretation of it. But it's like it's like very anti-Semitic, but it's so searing in its depictions of all the Trump personalities. I really think that the same kind of foundation that they had going into 2016, right? These forgotten men and women who are just like fascists, what they're talking about, they are not going to be with them. I don't think they're going to be with them, particularly when Trump is gone. Trump is able to bring all kinds of weird people together. He's able to get like sports bros and all kinds of, I remember like all the discourse about where's the Joe Rogan of the left, right? I don't see somebody like JD Vance being able to keep that coalition going. And they're really reliant on some people who are notoriously inactive in previous elections, or almost like, if you think about the liberal left, that sort of wing of politics, they're always say like, oh, the Bernie people, we got to activate these people who feel like there's nothing in an election. Trump was really activating a lot of people who think politics is nothing, people whose views we might find heinous. If you don't have Trump's charisma and it's just this and it's JD Vance and it's Peter Thiel and it's other tech billionaires, I don't know how they are able to sustain it.
I think that's right. I think that Donald Trump was able to motivate a lot of people who are anti-politics because they see him as not a politician. One of the arguments is they don't see him as bought and controlled by special interests and billionaires. He is, but he is able to project this idea that he doesn't listen to anybody, in part because he's a crazy asshole. And he obviously does reject what people are telling him, and he brags about it at his rallies. The perception that JD Vance is being controlled by a billionaire is, I'm kind of curious how much people understand that that's true and how much that's going to hurt him. Do people know who Peter Thiel even is? Is that going to be a meme that sort of spreads beyond like the very politically aware? I don't know, but it feels like something that people would believe about him. And so I think it has some juice.
Mike mentioned a interview that we covered in one of our Patreon episodes with Usha Vance, who is JD Vance's wife. And I just want to play a very quick hit from this and get your reaction before you leave.
I don't really own any hats. I think I have a Disneyland hat, I want to say.
I just wondered.
Not a hat lady.
Okay, gotcha. Not everybody's a hat person.
Yeah.
So she's asked if she owns a MAGA hat, and she says she doesn't own any hats, really.
Yeah. Just your thoughts on that, please.
Can you imagine just being asked, would you like to wear this T-shirt that says, people like me should go away? I would like to wear this T-shirt that's like, I hate career women. I hate Indian Americans.
Yes. Oh, that's a big, we didn't really talk about that, but we didn't talk about that. My kids are mixed, is with Indian, Arab, and white. They're like, multiple stuff, but the Nick Fuentes guys, that particular wing, which is slightly different from Emily Eustace, because they were people who were more openly pro-Trump before. They have been obsessed with Usha Vance and JD Vance's kids, and photographs of them, wearing kurta pajamas and stuff that I'm all familiar with. I lived in India for 5 years. the people are they're obsessed with it. I don't know how they're going to let that go, and I don't know how the average Republican is going to be able to miss it once they start talking about it online. They have a lot of reach thanks to Elon Musk.
I can say from experience that people are fascinated by their marriage and they find it gross and they find it weird from all sorts of angles. There's racists who just object to a mixed marriage, obviously, but I think a lot of people who don't are nonetheless fascinated by them for all sorts of reasons, not the least of which is they see the hypocrisy of JD Vance trying to cater to these people while also still being married to her.
Yeah, I mean, I have, like I said, Indians in the family, like she's a race traitor. She's this. They'll say that because they feel hurt that she's willing to align herself with white supremacists. The other thing about that is she's a very accomplished career woman, right?
Oh yeah,
she's like went really
in
really
a lot
far.
of ways. In a lot of ways, she was like way more impressive than JD.
Yeah. And she's settling for now a manufactured gig in which she reads like, Thomas the Tank Engine to kids on a YouTube show that no one's going to watch. I think that is also something that women see, and I don't think they would like that personally, but I'll let you speak on that.
Yeah, I think that that's true. And it shows that I think one of the weaknesses for JD Vance, which is that he's kind of incoherent in a lot of ways. And it's not just the hypocrisy, because Republicans have a long history of being able to digest that and live with it. It's much more that he doesn't know what crowd he's trying to speak to, I think, a lot of the time. A huge part of him being proud of being married to Usha Vance is that she is this accomplished, educated woman who is the daughter of also accomplished, educated immigrants. And it was a huge status symbol. It's clear to me that it was a huge status symbol in his mind to be married to such a woman. And he thinks that kind of doing this like performative, I conquered her, I turned her into a housewife who has to read books to kids and is, pregnant for the fourth time. I think he's hoping that narrative kind of like smooths these things over, but I think a lot of the MAGA people that he's trying to speak to don't relate to that desire at all, because they're not from the Ivy League world. They don't understand anything about why he believed it was such a feather in his cap to marry somebody like that, to be seen as being accepted and even, approved of by her and her family, right? He obviously wanted that at the time. And now I think a lot of the people that he's trying to appeal to don't understand that or find that bad. Those people suck, don't get me wrong. It's just, I find it kind of interesting, and he doesn't really know how to navigate that twin desire to sort of appeal to the Ivy League types, but also to like these working class racists that he's trying to cultivate as his base.
Yeah, he wants the respectability of woke pussy, but the grunge of MAGA cock. Okay, Amanda, I'm so sorry we taught you about that today.
Oh no, I am going out tonight with friends and I'm explaining this to them.
Yeah, just my advice to everybody is say no to MAGA cock. You can do better, and you can be treated better.
Amanda, thanks so much for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me.